even this whole conversation, my goal and everything that we talk about right now is not necessarily that you believe me, but if there's one spark in you that just opens up a little bit of a gateway that you believe more in yourself or more in the magic of the universe, then I've done all that I need to do. The rest is for you to learn through your experiences.
What's up, everybody? I'm your host, Patrick Cook. Welcome to Being. Being is a place where we gather to explore some of life's most difficult questions. What does it mean to lead a meaningful life? What does it mean to live a life of purpose or on purpose? How do we make sense of the world? Really, what we're asking is, what the hell is going on? My intention with this podcast is to explore what it means to be human in the modern world through the lens of creativity, consciousness, and personal development. Through authentic conversations with a wide array of guests, including artists, intellectuals, scientists, visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders, Being ventures to make collective sense of an increasingly complex world with the unifying goal of building a sustainable future for all. As humanity continues to march full steam towards extinction, we can no longer afford to simply ask, what is best for me? The question now must become, what is best for me and the whole simultaneously? And so, dear audience, I want to inspire you to take full responsibility, to find your purpose, and to engage your evolution as a conscious agent. I challenge you to live your being. If you're enjoying the content, please do subscribe to the show and get a new episode delivered directly to your device every Friday. And as always, I love hearing from you. So please do rate and review the episode on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, or whichever platform you prefer. Also, I'm proud to announce that the show is now available on YouTube. And you can also follow us on our new Instagram page at Being with Patrick Cook. For show notes and more information, head on over to being-podcast.com. Now, on with the show. Daniel Jonathan is a software engineer, world traveler, and tech developer. He's also worked directly with American ufologist Dr. Stephen Greer, the founder of CSETI, the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence. His current creation is his own platform called The Cosmic Mind, which architects AI real-time machine learning by modeling solutions based on his own unique perception of the structure and magic of the universe. He's an incredibly intelligent, articulate, and grounded human being, and this episode is guaranteed to expand your mind and stretch the outer limits of your consciousness. Daniel Jonathan, welcome to Being. Daniel Jonathan, welcome to Being, my brother.
Thank you. Good to be back.
Yeah, man. So you have the honor of being my first repeat guest.
Oh, wow.
Right?
That's cool.
Yeah,
that's super cool.
We dropped in on episode 10, I believe it was.
Mm-hmm.
Now at episode 25, and we've had a couple of conversations just off the record. We had breakfast the other day, and we just went so deep into such fascinating topics. It's just be like, oh, dude, you got to come back on the show. So here we are.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome.
Yeah, it's great.
So we don't really have this scripted. We're just going to go off the cuff and see what comes up. But I thought a good place to start was just to sort of introduce yourself, reintroduce yourself to people who might have heard episode 10. Who's Daniel Jonathan?
So Daniel Jonathan is a child of this earth, without being so. So last time actually I was on the show, I spent a lot of time with Dr. Greer, Dr. Stephen Greer.
Who's he, for the record?
Well, he just recently came out with a documentary called Contact of the Fifth Kind. He has another one, Serious Disclosure, another one, Unacknowledged. And he was the founder of the Disclosure Project,
right,
which back, I think it was around 2002 or something like that. And one of the biggest disclosures in the world of what military technologies are being hidden from us, alien reproductive vehicles, what is not being told to us, and what is it that we're not learning about ourselves.
Wow.
So about maybe 8 years ago, was my first trip with him and spent 3 years going on trips with him, 9 consecutive trips. I've only missed one.
What does that mean, going on trips?
So when you go on a trip, you spend a week or so out in the desert or a remote location, so that this way we can just basically be in the group, about 20 to 30 people.
Okay.
And you learn to make contact. And well, a blanket statement would be extraterrestrials.
Okay.
Because extraterrestrials, we think of them as like, oh, they come from space.
Right.
But the truth is, as I said, is a blanket statement. So you're talking celestial beings, God-conscious beings, actual extraterrestrials, creation beings, Brahman-conscious beings, unity-conscious beings. Basically, the being family. And the being family is something we don't learn about in science. I just want to explain that really quick. We have the feline family, which you have your tigers and your lions and your domestic cats, and they have a lot of similarities. You have your canine family, you have your dogs and your coyotes and your domestic dog and your German shepherd.
Okay.
But no one ever talks about the being family. And to be a being is to be part of the universal consciousness, the 5-point star, the head, the arms, the legs. And the different ones that we can just talk about right now would be the human being, would be the celestial being, would be the God-conscious being, would be the creation being. Angelic beings, there's 2 types of angelic beings that I've experienced. So that's the being family.
And so when you say you've experienced them, what does that mean?
Well, on the Dr. Greer trip is you get to see them. And
like with your own eyes.
Oh, with
no
your own
special
eyes.
Equipment.
Not only do you get to see them with your own eyes, is we film it. I actually have 1,000 hours of video that only if you were ever on the trip you would have seen. I just have never had the time to edit it or go through it. 1,000 hours of video is like 20,000 hours of watching.
Wouldn't you think that would be, valuable content? People would want to see that, or is it protected under some kind of...
No. Actually, we've put out some video, and if you watch Contact of the Fifth Kind, you'll see some of my videos in there.
You were the videographer.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I participated as that, but I was also a mentor because I've been on so many trips.
Right.
And as well as I was a participant and a student.
So what does it require to actually come in contact with beings?
First is really about letting go of what you think a being is, what a contact is
and
like.
And that is so difficult for human beings.
Yeah. Super brainwashed in what it is.
Yeah.
Especially what one looks like.
Yeah.
We always depict in movies that it's like this octopus looking squid-like thing that wants to drain your brains or whatever. And it's actually the bipolar opposite. They're very benevolent. They care for you so much. And the experience is coordinated with your level of fear and their level of comfort as well. Because the more they manifest, some of them could be in harm. Some of them absolutely not.
So you're saying most beings are benevolent?
All the ones I've experienced.
All the ones you've experienced. Does that suggest that all beings are benevolent, or is there malevolent entities and you just weren't calling them in?
That's a really good question.
Isn't it?
Yeah. That's a really good question. So when we talk about benevolence and kindness, we relate it a lot to our perspective.
Right.
And we think, if I have malicious intent and there's another being or even just another person that I'm doing that with, I don't really think they're a bad person. I might not even think I'm malicious. I might actually be thinking what I'm doing is a good thing. But another way to think about it is when we're making contact, they're also making contact. And they're coming in a peaceful way, the same way that we're approaching them in a peaceful way.
What is their motivation?
Great questions. I cannot say directly what their motivation is because that's not something that you're told. But one thing that's important is for the growth of humanity.
Okay.
And
the growth of humanity or the growth of life in the universe?
That is what it's a part of.
Right.
Human beings are the caretakers. In the last yuga, in the last 30,000 years or so, we've been the caretakers of this earth because of how consciousness breathes. It's a breath, and when it goes into a lower vibration, certain beings can be in that vibration in order to, it's like being in a world. And when it's a higher vibration, then the other beings can be there more easily with more comfort.
So are you saying that human beings are designed or well suited to low vibration environments?
Well, okay, we were actually, so many thousands of years ago, when consciousness was going through what's called the fall, some people understand it, is where like we had forgotten what we were. What actually had happened was the vibration became more dense. And when the vibration became more dense for the higher vibrational beings, now not higher vibrational because they're better than us, it's just the timing of where they were within that expansion of consciousness. So for them, it became heavy and they needed to go somewhere else.
Right.
So from their DNA, they had created a new being, a new caretaker for the earth, a new caretaker of the worlds within the earth. And that was where the human came in. And I want to talk a lot about separating the physical from the consciousness, but just to get to it is now we're entering into the age where the vibration is rising again.
Okay.
And this is why a lot of people are also getting this intuition that there's more, or they're seeing ships. It's because they can come back. Not only they can come back, they can be themselves while they're back because they've been here the whole time, just not necessarily in such an obvious way.
I just want to ask you before we go on, you just mentioned how human beings were kind of birthed from other beings.
Yeah.
Is that what you meant?
Yeah.
So how does that genesis of human life match with the evolutionary story that we understand as three-dimensional? You know, we came from amoebas in the ocean and...
Sure. Well, those were based off of theories,
right.
And there's missing links in between that theory, but it's a comfortable theory, it's a theory that we can learn a lot from if we go from it, because in the physical nature, there's a lot of repetition and there's a lot of growth, but no one has ever stitched that whole theory together. But what happens in theories is we forget their theories and we write them as if they're facts, and so then those facts become the arguments or the basis of knowledge, and then a new book gets written because somebody wrote a book based on reading other people's books.
So what's your interpretation then?
Well, my understanding, first of all, in the beginning, all of it came through experience. It came from the education that I was left with after the experience of being with beings. Then you go and read these books and you're like, oh my goodness, there's a lot aligned here. But we're missing something when we read these books. We're missing the experience. We're missing the idea that these books have valuable information rather than just story.
Which books are we referring to?
Well, the Bible, the Torah, the Quran,
right.
They all talk the same. And actually, the more you dive deeper into it, you might eventually end up learning about a group of the Gnostics and Gnosis. And back when Christianity was defining itself and when it was going through its crusades, and they actually wiped out the Gnostics. And the Gnostics were the first group of Christianity stemming from the Hebrew, not focusing that the Pope or the Father or the priest is the controller of the information. Their belief was that, and their understanding was, we all have the right to have an experience. We all have the ability to have an experience. And through our experiences, we tell each other the stories, we tell each other the experiences, and that's how information is learned. But that was severed and cut really quickly, and lost.
Right.
And it turned into believe. And if you actually, if you know anything about magi and spells of words, the word believer is a spell. If you break it down, it's be lie ver, whereas be lie ver means to see in Spanish or in Latin foundations, which is be the witness to a lie. So if I tell you to be a believer, I'm telling you to witness my lie. Whereas in the Gnostic way, in Gnosis was, no, be a knower. Be a knower.
That just feels so much better, doesn't it?
It does. Even cool to say gnosis.
Yeah. So just before we move on, this is fascinating to me because I came up in a very traditional scientific, religious, first of all, and then abandoned that for more religious scientific view of evolution.
Yes.
So it's fascinating to me to consider that human beings might have arisen somewhere else and been planted on this earth. Is that?
It's not necessarily planted, because a lot of people think also that a lot of these beings come from other worlds. They're not. They're also children of the earth. That's why they're here.
They're just around us, but in different dimensions.
Or just around us and you don't know what they look like.
Right.
Right? We have to really stop creating a dialogue of separation. You see, even you, in talking to me, you're finding so many ways to say that they're there and we're here.
Yeah.
But that's not really the case. They're here and you're here. And we're all here. And if anything, in the last year, we're really learning a lot about the human consciousness and consciousness itself. So just to touch upon one thing is, if we, many years ago, if we just look at the physical, then we think, hey, well, you look like me and I look like me and she looks like me. Well, maybe we're all the same. And that's a really easy way to be distracted. Or to be hypnotized by the illusion. But that's not the case. This is just a vessel. So like if you look at a race car driver, if you're in an F1 race car, you need an F1 race car driver, you need an F1 race car to drive in the F1 race. If you're a rally car driver, you need a rally car. And if you're a motorcycle racer, then you need a motorcycle. But the driver is neither one of those vehicles.
Right.
It's just the necessary vehicle to be in that race.
Right.
Once the race is over, the driver gets out and they're just them.
So are you describing like the human body and the human soul? Is that a good?
Well, the human body is separate from the human soul and the human and from the consciousness.
Right.
Right. So the soul is another sort of vessel. Right.
Okay.
For the totality of worlds. And but
all right, you're starting to lose me now.
Yeah. I wanna go back to that race car driver. Okay. So consciousness itself takes form, but it is not form.
Right.
Okay.
That makes sense.
So any being that understands this and has the ability to be just purely in consciousness, okay, which we actually are, but and I can explain it, the physics and all of that stuff.
Okay.
And I will. They can come back and be in the form that they want. So, let's just say I'm walking down the street and I'm doing my thing. Or even in the stories, if we look at how we put our superheroes, like Superman, he's Clark Kent, he's walking down, no one pays attention to him.
Yeah.
Right? But the second he needs to be super, he just removes that illusion and everyone is seeing him as super and going, oh my God, there he is, he's Superman. It's very much the same thing. If you really have a lot going on, kind of like even a billionaire, let's say, you don't want everyone around you to know. Right. You want to keep it chill. You don't want the attention. You don't want the judgment. You don't want the ask.
Right.
Because yourself, you look for peace. So you want to blend in.
Right.
Most likely, the most blended in people are ones with a lot of magical power or knowledge, but they'll leave you with something. When you really meet somebody who has a lot to offer, rather than them glorifying themselves, they'll be interested in you. And then they'll leave you with a little something for you to think about, like planting a seed. And that's what's important. Just something, even this whole conversation, my goal and everything that we talk about right now is not necessarily that you believe me, but if there's one spark in you that just opens up a little bit of a gateway that you believe more in yourself or more in the magic of the universe, then I've done all that I need to do. The rest is for you to learn through your experiences.
Yes. Know myself, not believe in myself.
Know thyself. And that's why it says know thyself.
Know thyself. Yeah, totally. This is brilliant, dude. I love it. So who are you?
I'm Daniel.
Are you a being?
Well, of course I'm a being.
But you know what I mean.
We'll get that in a second. Okay. I'll tell you some stories.
Okay, tell me some stories.
Okay, but also just to go back, you said that you're from science and all that. I mentioned that I work with Dr. Greer. I'm 37 years with a computer. I'm 20 years. My first tech company was at 17 years old. I'm now 37, so that's 20 years ago. This is well before anybody became interested in tech because it's a cool thing to do. I look at systems. I care about the importance of the truth between systems to work together. Okay. So for me, my life has been a puzzle of trying to understand how certain things had come together and why they come together in that way. But if it doesn't work, I got to throw that out because I have no time for things that
How
don't
long
work.
do you spend searching, going down that path?
Well, as a good developer, a good engineer will always experiment to find the limitations of what their objective is and where they want to go. But a really good engineer will also leave enough room to say, hey, I didn't fully go down that road because maybe I'm not necessarily ready at that time.
Right.
So sometimes, the more and more you drive a race course and you do the laps, that's when you start learning the course. And then you take a break and then you go back and you might find that actually, you know what, you're off. And then you'll take a break and then you'll be even deeper into it. And then eventually you'll let go of the analysis and just feel it. And then before you know it, you are the course. You're what everybody else is racing against, right? That's what really goes down.
Love it.
Yeah. So actually, I wanted to share a story with you.
Okay, go for it.
In our first chat, I was really nervous. Not because I'm scared of or nervous of talking, but in my life, I always felt that I was a little bit of a spiritual trust fund kid. Okay. And what I mean by that is I didn't need to go too far to experience things, and things would come my way.
Right.
Okay. Like even working with Dr. Greer. When I was 22 years old, about 8 years before I started working with him, I saw him on YouTube, and I didn't even know what he was really doing. I just saw him. And I just looked at my brother and I said, Adam, one day I'm going to work with this guy when I'm ready. And in 20 years, we're building spaceships. Okay. And my brother just looks at me and goes, okay, no problem. Daniel said it. We're doing it.
Love it.
8 years later, I'm in the desert with Dr. Greer, and then I'm going on repeat trips and I'm learning all about space and encountering beings and what have you. And then this year, now I'm launching a company that may, and I believe, I know it can obtain the wealth to invest into space. And if you look at every major tech person right now, what do? All they want to do is build space things. There's a reason for that. There's a reason that they're interested in space. And there's a reason why we're aware of space. We're meant to thrive in it. All creatures in the universe are given all the right tools to thrive in their known environment. Okay, so first thing is, what is the environment? Right? Well, that is the capacity of your awareness. What are you aware of? Well, we're aware of the stars, we're aware of the macro, and we're aware of the micro. Well, then that means that we have the tools. So whether it be that we meditate and move our mind through remote viewing like we did in the training in the desert, or we build a spaceship. Either way, we're given the tools to thrive. So we're meant to go to space as a species. Now, a lion, not necessarily in the lion form, okay? And I can explain that later, what I mean by that. The lion's, its awareness is in the Sahara, or wherever, it lives, and with the animals and the alligator or the crocodile in the river. That's its awareness. That's where it thrives. But if you actually look at the tools that it's given, well, it's given all of the capacity to thrive in that environment and to do it well. And so the universe does that for everything because it needs to. That's the way the design is. Obtain a world in the sense of what your awareness covers, what your capacity is aware of. Here are the tools, and now be in it and participate and thrive in it and grow in it and learn in it and expand in it and redefine in it, and then keep on doing that over and over and over again.
So within that framework, and I agree with you, you're given the right tools to thrive in your environment.
Yeah.
If we look at human beings, some metrics you could look at say, yes, we're absolutely thriving. Technology is exponential. There's a lot of metrics saying the world is getting a lot better exponentially. Looking at other metrics, there's a lot of them that say the world is getting a lot worse exponentially.
Okay.
So what does that mean with respect to, okay, human beings have been given the tools to thrive in this environment, but we're making a mess of it on a lot of levels.
When you
to the point where it's existential. We might
Yeah.
terminate ourselves before we can actually get to space or the next level.
Well, when a kid sits down for dinner, he has a spoon, a fork, and his knife. And sometimes he goes at his soup with a fork, and his mother says, no, don't do that. That's the wrong tool. So you can be given many, many tools. It's about you practicing.
Right.
Where I think that we fail is that we're not taught to practice for our overall growth.
Right.
We're actually taught that when we know something, we should keep it to ourselves or keep it hidden as an advantage.
Totally.
Survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
Well, the species is the fittest, not your age. You're
couldn't
going to
agree.
die in
I
100
couldn't agree
years in
more.
this form.
Totally.
Right? So you're not thinking of the fittest when you think of yourself. If you think that humans are thousands of years old, why we record information, why we pass it along, is so that the future generations will be able to continuously grow and benefit from that information. Now you're thinking about actually what thriving means, right? And
totally.
And so, yeah.
I couldn't agree more. Rivalrous, game theoretic situations that capitalism breeds, where we're in competition with, and it's my strategic advantage to hoard information and disinform you.
Yes.
I think that's where we find ourselves right now. It's like an information narrative warfare.
Yes.
Where you can't tell what's true. So everything's diluted, everything's multipolar. So
can't telling what's true versus everything is true and everything is not true. If you look at The Holographic Universe by Michael Talbot, he'll talk about just the foundations of your belief system within something can make something true, right? There's some people who don't know what cancer is. They go to the doctor and the doctor says, hey, you had cancer, but it seemed to have passed. And they'll be like, cancer? What's cancer? And then they don't know. And so to them, they don't even create that for them. The same thing, you go surfing. I like using surfing analogies. If you go into the water with fear, you're going to feel stiff. You're going to feel heavy. You're going to feel the weight and you're going to sink. Okay. But if you go in free and you go in open and you go in clear and feel supported, the biggest waves can feel like they're hugging you. It just feel cozy.
Totally. So it's a mindset. It's a perspective. It's
everything is true. Because nothing can exist and not be true. Even and ideas themselves are moving information without the weight of the physical form. So ideas are flowing constantly, and they're looking for things to manifest them. They're like fish swimming in the ocean of consciousness, saying, "Who's going to make me? Who's going to manifest me?"
So where do those ideas come from?
It's not that they come from anywhere as much as they are available
they just exist.
For us to receive.
Yes. So I view it as the quantum field. It's it's infinite possibility or potentiality.
Yes.
And so it's wherever we focus our attention is what comes into manifestation in form.
It could be if you really have the right mindset to do it. Like right now we're in a beautiful place. And a lot of people are like, wow, during these times, this place it's like heaven. And I said, it only takes one mind to make it heaven truly for itself, for it to now be heaven. And everyone else can live in it. The same way that if you're in a city and you're filled with fear all around you, you have many minds creating fear. You have many minds, even if it's true. It's the fear. If you can have something that's harmful to you and not be in fear of it. You can easily say, hey, you're in war, you're a soldier. Okay, they're shooting at me, but am I going to be scared, or am I going to go in there and do what I need to do? Maybe an easier analogy would be a paintball fight. You go into a paintball fight, it's like, I don't want to get shot with the paintball.
Right.
I know it can't kill me, so I lose a lot of that fear. But I still don't want to get hit. It hurts.
Yeah.
The more and more I drop the idea of what could happen and focus on what I need to do to dictate what would happen, then the more and more I'm in control, and then that manifestation can happen.
I totally agree with you. But the problem is human nature, our evolutionary nature, is to focus on the danger. So where it's a survival instinct. It's a reptilian brain saying, okay, where is the danger?
Sure.
And so we're constantly focused on the danger. And so we're kept in fear.
Yeah.
Now the difference is there isn't a lion in the savannah trying to murder us, right? Or trying to eat us. The fear is all in our heads.
Yeah.
Right. So we're scared of being poor or being lonely or not being worthy, and so we continue that evolutionary mindset of fear and survival mode into a modern day where those physical fears or their physical dangers don't exist.
Yeah.
Right. And so how we move past that is a lot of what my work is. It's like, how do we move into that, moving past fear and those base emotions into gratitude, into positivity, into creativity.
Yeah.
Right. And so we're creating our lives rather than reacting to them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And well, the thing is, a lot of people are afraid of death. Okay.
What's your take on that?
Well, death is not the experience of the individual, but the experience of the observer. Because anybody who has a death experience and comes back and tells you how amazing it was on the other side, they're not sitting there dead. And so in the near-death experience.
So just before you go on, interesting, I listened to a podcast last night that Sam Harris was on, and he was talking about death and the afterlife. And he was saying that it's a bit of a misnomer to say that people who've had near-death experiences because they're on the table, their body, they stop breathing or whatever, but their brain doesn't die. Because when they come back, they don't have brain damage. Yeah. Right? So they're not actually dead. Yeah. So he was, from a very scientific perspective, he was like, it might be just the release of DMT, And so...
Well, more and more ways to look at that consciousness never dies, and consciousness can't die, and we are consciousness in form, and we're creating this form to be in this world and to have certain tools in this world and to be able to function in that. And a lot of people define themselves based on the form and the tools, but the truth is, you're defined as a being by your conscious level, and this is what can separate people. Like, you can have a ET beside you or a higher level being beside you, and it's not that he's a little taller or shorter. It's that his awareness of what is going on in the universe and his experience or her experience of what's going on in the universe is so much greater that they're now a being of that world. So we can raise our level of being by increasing our level of experience. And this is where the idea of, like, if you look in the Kabbalistic ways or in the Book of Zohar, it's about it's about moving closer and closer to the vibration of the Creator. Once you get to the vibration of the Creator or closer to the Creator, then you are that level, you are that being, right? And this is why sometimes when people do a lot of medicines like ayahuasca or which I like to talk about, they sometimes can't reintegrate back because it's tough for them to have so much awareness. Yeah. And so actually the lack of awareness is a protective measure to make things more comfortable according to the community. So if the community rises together, then the conscious level rises together, and then we're all comfortable in this higher state.
That's dude, you just described my life mission right there. Is to build community one individual at a time, starting with myself, obviously, and to heal myself, to transform myself, to raise my own consciousness, and then invite people into community to do the same work. And from there, we create like a nodal point of a decentralized network where our consciousness is raising, and it influences other nodes to raise their consciousness, and then all boats rise with the tide. And so the consciousness of the entire planet starts to rise, and that's how we facilitate change on a global level. Rather than staying in the lower levels of fear and competition and rivalry and all the things we were talking about earlier, and taking up arms and trying to fight the powers that be. That will never work.
Yeah. I wouldn't even look at fear as a level as much as it is a choice. And when you're not, when you're more confident of the outcome, the fear drops, right? Some people are comfortable with not knowing the outcome. Personally, for me, I'm fine with not knowing the outcome. So I don't have a lot of fear even when there's the unknown. But you take a guy like John Florence or Kelly Slater as surfers. When they go in there, they know most likely they're going to come out because they practice, they handle themselves, they humble themselves to the ocean, they participate. So even like a 30-foot barreling wave on reef, as much as they may say it's scary, they're not moving in fear. They're not behaving in fear.
Totally.
So in life, we all have that big wave. We all have that shallow water and reef, but we make the choice to operate in fear, to operate in doubt. And a lot of that comes because we're not taught the correct things about ourselves. Where there's a lot of lies even in the truth that is being said, because the best lie is one that's 80% true because it resonates.
Right.
And something that resonates but then gets a little bit off at the end, or is twisted, or is debunked, or whatever, then it's like, oh, that felt true. Oh, it's a lie. And then you dismiss the whole thing.
Right. Hey, are you feeling lost, frustrated, angry about the state of the world, but unsure what to do about it? I get it. The world is a pretty messed up place right now. Yet, in these interesting times of shattered realities, many people are using alcohol to escape and numb their feelings of anxiety, dread, and uncertainty. I know, I did it for years. This is why I've made it my mission to support brave souls in mastering their inner world and finding a deeper sense of purpose. To that end, I created Reset 2020. Reset is a personal transformation mastermind group with the intention of resetting your relationship with alcohol and becoming the best version of yourself in an empowering, supportive online community. To check out more about Reset 2020 and to watch my masterclass video, head on over to go.patrickcooklife.com. Remember, Cook is spelled with an E, C-O-O-K-E. So it's go.patrickcooklife.com. All right, now back to the show. So how do you, what is the motivation for raising your consciousness? Like you talked about, if you're at a certain level of awareness, you feel comfortable there.
Yeah.
You feel safe there.
Sure.
And so going beyond that represents going outside of your comfort zone, which represents scary, fear, So what's the motivation to grow consciously? Well,
eventually, as much as you might find a couch very comfortable, it does get boring to sit there, and it does get repetitive. So even if a person takes time to be in a conscious level and says, hey, I feel really good here, be there, do it, enjoy it, go to every single corner in it, but eventually you're going to get bored of it.
Yes.
And that will get you to move. But the ultimate goal, and just before the next question, is immortality is when you get to remember all of your conscious experiences. It's not a physical thing. Everyone's like, oh, I found the fountain of life or the youth or whatever.
I'm never going to die.
And I'm never going to die. It's not your physical form that you want to survive. It's your awareness that you want to survive. And this is where resurrections and reincarnations come in, is where they bring the consciousness back into form. And this is why in Egyptians' times they can say, hey, this pharaoh was a king or pharaoh for 30,000 years. Well, how did they do that?
Right.
Well, it wasn't because they were like, just sprinkling certain...
It wasn't CRISPR gene editing.
Yeah, or whatever. It's because their consciousness is there. And this is why in certain cultures, when they feel that they found the consciousness to reincarnate back on the earth in a certain time, then they really respect it. Even though it's in a child who's squishy and doesn't know anything and is not going to give much leadership whatsoever. But they know that that's just the body waiting to grow. The consciousness in there, the knowledge in there, the connection in there is something that cannot be broken once it's made. It can be ignored. It can be pushed away. It can be here and there. But you cannot break it because it's a truth.
Awesome. So I just want to come back to what you were talking about, laying on the couch.
Yeah.
So a person of certain awareness is comfortable on the couch, is like, I'm good. I don't need to, raise my consciousness. I'm good. But the danger in that, I had this conversation with somebody the other day, is that there's a certain apathy that goes along with it. And that means you're not taking responsibility for being a steward of the planet. Right, which draws us into complacency, which allows malevolent forces to take over and profit at all costs, ruining the environment, because 90% of us are sitting on the couch saying, I'm good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there's a certain level of responsibility and a certain urgency, I think, that comes now in this point in history. We need to wake the fuck up, or we're all screwed.
Yeah.
And so how do those two ideas jibe together?
Well, first, sometimes you have a bucket of water and you need to go take it across, and you need to pour that water and plant something. Some water spills out, You don't feel so bad because you have so much more water left.
Mm-hmm.
So in growth, not everyone is going to make it to the other side. And that's not a bad thing. That's just the way that it is. That's how statistics are. There's the outliers, which are very early on there. There is the general mean and the average that is going to get there. And then there's the ones that just don't.
Right.
And then the curve is formed.
Right.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Because still at the end of the day, if we're still talking a lot about the physical, we're still attached to this idea that it's over just because they didn't make it this round.
Right.
No, they'll make it in another round. It will come. Their awareness will just wait.
I totally agree with you on an individual level.
Yeah.
It's not, you don't have to wake up in this lifetime, and maybe
Yeah.
it's going to take a couple of lifetimes.
Yeah.
But that idea juxtaposed against the urgency of environmental collapse or existential, nuclear war or something happening that terminates the entire human experiment.
But and we talk it won't be terminated.
Right.
Okay.
Why do you say that with confidence?
Well, because first of all, even one nuclear or many nuclear missiles landing would not cover the entire planet.
Right.
But
it would knock us back into the Stone Ages as far as development.
Only if it's us left walking around and creating again. But if we actually look at a lot of our history, they always talk about star people, and they always talk about the beings from the sky coming and teaching the ways in the Mayan culture and all these different cultures. Nothing's to say that can't happen again. Yeah. And actually, maybe it might be good to go back. I was just going
to say that. That's the Great Reset.
The Great Reset, yeah. We do need a Great Reset with a slap in the face along the way, and not to argue anymore.
Yeah.
But really also to, this whole idea of, if humanity dies, the world dies. The world's not going to die, okay?
The Earth will be fine.
Even if the world got hit by crazy meteors right now and completely wiped out, well, if everyone... I know there's dinosaurs, there's bones, there's evidence of this. There's still life now, right? So did the Earth go? Did the Earth die? No. And the other thing is, a lot of people think of life when it's green and blue and sunny.
Right.
But how many things live in caves?
Yeah.
They live deep in the ocean.
Dude, the mycelium beneath the surface.
Yeah, well, and the mushroom connect. Yeah, exactly. The mycelium network. The deep ocean creatures. So you're telling me that everything is dead?
Yeah,
no.
they'll be fine.
No. So there is this and so there is this picture. We like to paint pictures because the human mind basically manifests in still frames. Right. It has a picture, and then it moves to the next picture, and it moves to the next picture, and it moves to the next picture. And we have this picture of life as, we're in Costa Rica. When people see the background, when you're talking in a video chat, they're like, oh my God, he's living. Because behind you, there's the greens, there's the blues from the ocean, there's the sun, the yellows, all of that stuff. So they see life right away, but that's not what defines life. That's just how that life looks, right? If you go deep ocean, there's no sun, there's no, the greens from that we're seeing here. So is that not life? Because it's not pictured the same way. Even if you go to a city and there's all these cool robotic or, matrixy kind of like technologies, that's life too, right? Defining a totality in one perspective is the mistake.
Of course. And that's a human error.
It's an error in general.
Yeah.
It's an error in general. I don't like to blame anything for anything. But what I do like to do is take some responsibility to participate in helping things move along, regardless of who's wrong, regardless of who's right. Because going back to the person who may have pushed it in the wrong direction, right? Unless they say, hey, I'm purposely doing this to destroy everything. Well, if they do that, well, then we should be like, all right, we got to talk about that attitude right there. But if they're just behaving in a way that they think is helpful, then they're doing exactly what the universe wants them to do.
Oh, man.
Which is flow. So to really be compassionate is to detach from what we think is right versus what somebody else's is right, and to just really look at the operation, the movement in general, right? So I think Bruce Lee said this, and I never really thought about it as much, be the water, not the form. So he's like, you put water in a pot and it becomes the pot. You put water in a cup and it becomes the cup. If you look at water, it doesn't struggle. It flows, and if it finds a barrier, it goes, okay, just new direction, and it goes into a new direction. It doesn't sit there and go, oh, barrier, it's over, guys, all the water, it's over, we're not moving anymore, there's a rock. If anything, actually, it smooths out the rock over time, because all of the continuous friction against that rock, that it starts to smooth it out. So having repetition in history, if we look at the world wars, that's a friction, but if we learn from it, then it gets smoothed out, and we don't look at it as just a loss or as a damaging point. We can actually be empowered by it and accelerate further. Very much with what's going on. Personally, I would like to not give too much opinion about what's going on right now, but look at what is going on right now. Yeah. And there's a lot of friction. There's a lot of change going on. Yeah. And if anything, this is an opportunity in general for everyone to say, hey, there's some things we're not doing right. Yeah. Preventative medicine, post-medicine, all of it needs to be rethought, because we're going to encounter this again. Yeah. Whether it be made or natural or whatever way it comes, we're going to experience it again until it's completely smoothed out. Yes. And only when it's completely smoothed out do we not need to do it again.
That's a beautiful framework, and I think you're totally right. That on the macro level, all these things, world wars or pandemics, are necessary for our evolution. And if we can view it that way, that these are happening for us, and what is the lesson, what is the wisdom they're here to impart. Yeah. And then you can look at it on the micro level as well. It's like, what's happening in my life? What are the obstacles that seem to be in my way? And how can I view them, reframe them as, okay, this is happening for me. Yeah. This is in my path. Like we talk about, the obstacle is the way.
The obstacle is the way. Ryan Holiday. That's an incredible book. I love that book.
Yeah. Yeah. And so if you can reframe your life, it's like every challenge you come across is an opportunity. Yeah. Right? Rather than a stumbling block, or it's like, oh my God, another thing. And you retract into that defeatist negative attitude, right? So it's a framework, it's a mindset that we need to shift.
And a mindset is the only way these ideas move.
Exactly.
Right? That's it. Yeah. So the attitude is the problem. Yeah. If we're like, I love it where people are like, oh, the universe put me here, it's so amazing. And then when something goes wrong, it's like the universe is not at all there. It's like, where's God when things go wrong? And God's always to thank for whenever things go right. Right. No, a student is not always aware of how the lesson is given. But a student's job is to receive the lesson and take that richness of information and learn from it. It's the teacher's job to decide how the lesson is going to be given. And the teacher sometimes needs to give a tougher lesson or an easier lesson depending on how the students behave. Yeah. So the less and less that we learn as we go, the more and more it's going to get tougher.
Totally. I call them cosmic bricks.
Cosmic bricks.
You're going to keep getting hit until you start paying attention. Yeah. And the bricks are going to get bigger and bigger.
And if every time you get hit, you say thanks. Yeah. And you just build it, and then you have a house. And and eventually you dodge it. You go, whoa, there you go. Yeah.
Or the bricks don't come anymore because you've learned the lesson.
Well, because then they're like, man, he's building a really nice house over there. And, but that joke, that humor right now about how to receive the bricks is exactly the moment of where you decide who you're going to be in that moment.
Totally.
Well, I'd rather laugh about it, get the brick in the head, and build a house. Yeah. If it kills me, well, then you killed me. Yeah. Then I'm in the next place, or I'm over. What's the difference? Yeah. I'm not going to know. Yeah. If I'm over, I'm over. And if I continue and I go on, well, then I continue and I go on, and I'm going to look back and be like, man, I should have done that earlier. Maybe I should have jumped off the cliff. Yeah. But the idea is, it's in that moment that you get the opportunity to really see who you are. So you asked me, who am I, right? You said that in the question. Well, that's who I am. In that moment, I am reaching out and lending a hand. I'm leaving room for forgiveness. I'm leaving room for joy. I'm leaving room for happiness and love and compassion. That's who I am. You know, when I didn't become vegan. When I stopped eating meat and fish and all those things, everyone goes, "Oh, you're vegan." I go, "I don't know. I still eat honey. I don't know. Like, what's the vegan rules, you know?"
Yeah.
And then they're like, "Oh, well, this and this and that and that." I'm like, "Look, all I said is I don't eat meat and fish.
Yeah.
That's who I am. That's my diet."
Yeah.
Okay? Then it's, you made me vegan. So, you know, if you go back to like what makes a being extraterrestrial, that they can go off planet, well, then every human is extraterrestrial right now, because we can all go off planet. So that's not what makes a being extraterrestrial. A being extraterrestrial is when your mindset is empowered by more information and awareness, and being comfortable with that information and awareness to help it move, to help it flow, and to have the capacity to not lose yourself in that process. Sometimes, for example, in the last 6 months, I did a very big mind experiment, where in the center part of that 6 months, there was 2 months of mushrooms. There we go. There we go. I did 2 months of mushrooms where I did psilocybin,
Right.
magic mushrooms. And people go, "Oh, you microdosed." And I said, "Well, I don't know, 2.5 grams a day."
That's
if
kind
you
of
call
macrodosing.
that. I did and at least two grams, because I would take it. And I did that for 60 days. 60 days of this. And then, you know, well, they go, "Well, why did you stop after 2 months?" And I'd be like, "Well, because I couldn't remember if I ate the mushrooms or not."
Oh, wow.
I would start waking up, because the mind, people will tell you, "Hey, if you study high, take the exam high."
Right.
Because the familiarity.
Yeah.
The mind doesn't know it's on mushrooms if it's on mushrooms. Okay? It doesn't. It just knows that it is learning, and it's building these connections. And so eventually, when you've done that so much and you build a density with those connections, and this is how habits are formed, but generally, if you build that density, then it's there. Then you don't need anything to get you there, right?
Wow.
So the 2 months of mushrooms, I woke up in the morning and I'm like, "Oh, thank you." And the 2 months of mushrooms, I woke up and I'm like, I can't even remember if I'm eating these. And that's when I started to wind down. And in the wind down, I finished it up with an incredible ayahuasca ceremony, which led to a beautiful cacao ceremony, which led to 2 peyote ceremonies, which led to sweat lodges, anyway.
So what was the fundamental learning from all of that experience? If you could wrap it up into...
I would look at it as a reinforcement. And there was one epic thing that I learned, is that do not define beings by their form, but by their consciousness and by their awareness. And
Wow. As we commune with nature in this moment, this is a first on the Being podcast.
This is a first.
This is a first.
There's a lot of firsts going down.
We're gonna share a joint.
Yeah.
Beautiful. And ceremonially.
Yeah.
And come on, if Elon
I'm
Musk
Canadian, so this
Me
is
too.
legal. Yeah, there you go. So
we're-
this is in our DNA.
Totally. Yeah, and if Joe Rogan and Elon Musk can do it, I think we can do it.
Exactly. Why not?
I want to come back to, because I remember the last couple of conversations we went really deep into sort of the fundamental nature of reality.
Yeah.
And so I want to sort of go in that direction by asking you a question that you mentioned earlier about creator, or the creator.
Uh-huh.
And so I want to know what that means to you, and then maybe more fundamental to that, what is the nature of consciousness? Where does it come from? How do human beings experience it compared to other beings?
Yeah. Okay, great. So let's go back to before our first talk, when I was nervous.
Yeah.
And there was this trust fund spirituality mentality that I
Right.
had. Let me define that a little bit. Before I came on the show, imagine this was a show about finances. And
it could well be.
It could be. I can give some financial advice. I'd take a lot.
Let's definitely talk about crypto before this is over.
Yeah, we'll definitely talk
Okay.
about crypto. But basically, who wants to take financial advice from a trust fund kid? Hey, if you lost all the things that you invested into, Daddy and Mommy have another 25 grand coming this month. So don't worry about it, right?
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
I see your point.
So I felt that, hey, wait a second here. There's so many people who put the work in. There's so many people who sacrificed their way of life into a different way of life to show their dedication.
Yeah.
And here I am, not really listening to anybody, doing what makes me comfortable, and constantly having the universe shrug me on my shoulder and say, hey, dude, we still want to talk to you.
Yeah.
Like when I was with Dr. Greer, first of all, what an honor to be with that guy. But he had to put up with me a little bit. And
in what way?
Anyone who gets to know me, they need to put up with me a little bit. I change my mind. I flip my ideas. I'm in, I'm out. I'm committed. I'm loyal. I'm a dedicated friend.
Yeah.
But I like to have the freedom that I can change my mind.
Dude, I'm the same way.
Yeah.
It's go with the flow, and it drives people crazy.
It does.
Because I don't make plans. I'm like, I won't make plans.
And I'm not saying that he was driven crazy by it, but he tolerated it. And he showed me only more invitation and love and made me feel more connected. So what happens is, if I feel that you care for me, I purposely push you away to see how much you really care for me.
Interesting.
And that comes from my childhood of just the relationships I had with my parents, and the way that, you know, it was a tough household physically and mentally. And
I think that's incredibly common, what you're describing.
Yeah, I don't feel unique in that way. But what I found was the result of it is the closer you got to me, then the more I'm going to push you away, not in a harmful way, but I'm gonna create the walls.
You put up barriers.
Yeah, only because they're like hidden barriers until you come close.
Yeah.
So, anyways, going back to this story, I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna go on a show and tell people how to connect to the universe. I need to apologize to the universe before I do this.
Okay, great. I love this.
So during the 6 months, I was also doing hypnosis regression sessions with a wonderful person, Kate, and I messaged her and I'm like, we're doing an emergency hypnosis session. You need to come to my house. And she's like, okay. So she came to my house. I'm already on 2.5 grams of mushrooms at this point.
Just what? Because it's a Tuesday?
Well, it's in the middle of that 2 months.
Oh, right. Of course.
And also it's a hypnosis session, which is also on a Tuesday.
You're on mushrooms right now, aren't you?
I had a little bit.
How much?
I don't know, but it was like, I don't like breaking them.
Okay.
So if they're connected already, then just have it as that. So like, whatever, like that big.
Like 3/4 of a gram, maybe? Or gram?
Yeah, 3/4 of a gram to a gram.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
It could be.
How do you feel?
I feel great. I feel great.
You look good.
Oh, thank you. That's the sun's fault. That's not my fault. No,
Sorry. Go continue on with your story, because this is fascinating.
Well, what I want to show people in this story is I want to actually share 2 really important stories of where I was on a psychedelic, but the experiencer was not on a psychedelic, and we had the same experience.
Okay.
And very powerful ways that I cannot control. So, she comes over and she sits down and
the hypnotist,
Kate, and she's like, well, what are we doing? And I said, we're going to the cosmic mind and we're apologizing to the universe. And she's like, okay. And goes,
God bless her.
Yeah, exactly. She also had to put up with to be a hypnotist with a person who's going to the cosmic mind to apologize
spiritual
to it
trust
before
fund kit.
Yeah, the spiritual trust fund kit. That is not an easy task. I even want to leave sometimes. No, I'm joking. I'm not that bad. I just make a lot of jokes. But
right.
So she's like, well, how are we going to do it? I said, we're just going to go. We're just going to go. So I lay down. Now we're already like 6 sessions in, right? So
there's a rapport.
Yeah, and I'm comfortable, and she already knows, who knows what's going to happen
so
right now.
Easy.
Yeah, and what she does is she focuses on the guiding and on the recording. And what I do is I go into the journey and stay present and describe it.
Right.
Now, a lot of people would think that is quantum mechanics, the quantum field, the connection. It's actually a little bit more. It is the transdimensional layer of physics, because it's multiple quantum states.
Right.
A quantum state is a single outcome. It's me being here with Kate, and it's me going on this journey.
Right.
The psilocybin just says, give the guy a little boost, make it a little easier, like good weather.
Yeah.
That's all it's really doing. But the experience is what you're capable of always. So anyway, I'm laying down and she's like, okay, go somewhere where you're comfortable. Well, so I went to the desert on my first trip with Dr. Greer, where I was on the last night in Arizona, and where I had met the teacher. And so I'm like, well, the teacher was the creator, that's so might as well go there if I'm trying to get to the cosmic mind to apologize to the universe.
It's a good start.
So I got there and she's like, can you see your hands and your feet? And I'm like, yeah, I see them. Check. She's like, all right, awesome. You're going to see a path. And I'm like, oh yeah, okay. I'm looking around. I see on the right. I'm like, yeah, I do see a path. She's like, take the path. I'm like, okay. So I start taking the path and I'm going down the path. And as I'm going down the path, I'm leaving the desert and I'm entering into space. And there's stars coming in and trees. I'm like looking around as I'm walking down this path that's windy and colors and purples and blues and whites with trees forming around it and stars in space. And I'm like, what are trees doing in space? This is so weird. You're thinking, only trees on Earth. So anyways, I keep on going and eventually beings start to appear
what kind of beings?
Along the path. They're just like silhouettes.
Okay.
Just their presence, not necessarily hey, this is me. That's
I'm
later.
Steve.
Actually, so I say to them, and I'm just like, hey guys, I'm here to apologize to the universe, and because this is the way I talk, so I'm just like, I'm here to do that. They're like, yeah, we know, but you're not there yet, so keep on going. And I'm like, okay. So I'm telling this to Kate, she's hearing me say these things.
And is this in like HD clarity, or is it a little more sort of dreamlike, hazy?
Really great question. The trees, so if you can imagine this, imagine the yellow brick road to the Wizard of Oz.
Uh-huh.
Remove all of the plants and everything and put space there.
Okay.
Then where the sky would be, you want to put like the violets and the aqua colors and the purples and the stars. And then all of the trees are just blackness, like void, that vine into it. Ooh. And create a forest from the blackness that is surrounding the path.
In silhouette.
Well, that's detailed. Okay. Like I'm seeing it now as it's like, when you describe like how the party was, you kind of replay it, recreate it as a creator, you recreate it over here in the lightweight cache system, kind of like how we save photos in the internet and dish them out to be more speedy, is we don't develop them so robustly. We give them just enough detail.
They're cached.
Exactly.
Awesome. Okay, so, you're going down the path.
So I'm down the path and the beings are like, keep on going. I'm like, all right, no problem. I'm going. So I keep on going and just more trees. And I keep on emphasizing freaking trees. Anyways, eventually I get to the center and there's 3 beings. And it's not the center like the end of the path. The path still continues. There's 3 beings on the path. And I'm surrounded by trees and all of this space. And it's my mother, the teacher, and my cat. My cat plays a massive role in my life. On Halloween, it saved my life. It died 5 years ago on Halloween, which set all the work to get here. Death was in my house on Halloween about 5-6 years ago.
Wow.
So think about waking up to that too. Just being like, why wasn't it me? And that's why was it my cat, if anything? And my cat was laid out in the doorway looking in. Cats hide when they die. And we took the cat to the ER in Victoria, British Columbia. It wasn't in Toronto. In Toronto, there's veterinarian ERs at 4:30 in the morning on Halloween.
Right.
And so I take my cat there and the doctor's like, 14 years I've been working here and I've never seen a cat die this way. It just like its insides melted, like turned to water. And I was like, of course, can't be normal. There you go, trust fund spirituality. Ooh. Twist that up, universe. Like, what do I now need to think about that for? Well, anyways, so I'm apologizing now to the cosmic mind and my cat's there. That's all I know. I'm like, okay, good to see you. Alive and doing very well. Fuck. But as I get closer, they merge into one. And I go, oh, so this entire time you've been the same being. And they go, yes. And I go, that makes a lot of sense based on how you treated me. And they go, yes. So Kate goes, okay, well, tell them what you want to say. And I'm like, oh yeah, the apology. So I apologize, very much like saying like, hey, I'm sorry. And I hope just even wanting to do this is really me saying sorry. I don't know how better else to say it than just being here.
Yeah.
And then Kate says, well, what did they say in return? And they said, well, we love you. We still love you, and we will always love you. So you're good. And I'm like, all right, great.
So we're done? We're good?
We're done. Okay. So instead of regressing back, because part of this 6-month thing was that I realized the common thing about me in my dream world and my meditations and my trips with Dr. Greer and my ayahuascas and everything is that there's me. And so I'm like, why is there me and then all these other me's? Why don't I just go to each one of those worlds and just connect with the me there and make it a one me, you know?
How do you do that?
Well, you got to go there.
Right.
So I went and I apologized to the universe. That me that knows where the cosmic mind is,
right.
I went there. Anyways, so instead of regressing, I just wake up in that awareness and say, I'm there and here. It's connected. Because I didn't create the distance of regressing back. I didn't tell my mind I'm going to leave this place and then go back to my hypnosis session. Well, there's still the part of me that never left the hypnosis session.
Right.
So where's to go back to?
Right.
So waking up the mind in both places maintains the connection between the places because there's no distance. Right?
I love it.
Okay.
Yeah. No,
so,
I get it.
I'm on mushrooms though. So
Yeah.
of course Kate and I are just like, what was that? And we're like, I don't know. We talk about the trees and everything. She writes it down. Go to bed, trip out a little bit up in my room, and then I go to bed. Wake up in the morning, text message on my phone. And I'm like, all right, what's going on? My friend Craig goes, Daniel, I had a dream about you. I need to see you. And I'm like, okay, well, I have this talk. So I'm going to go have the talk. So I have the talk with you. And then after having the talk with you, I go meet up with Craig to...
This is the timeline from the first podcast?
Yeah. I'm only 3 days in.
Okay.
Before going in.
Wow.
And so I go to meet him for lunch. And I didn't tell him anything about my hypnosis. Why would it,
Yeah.
There's nothing there. We chit-chat and stuff, but not to tell that. Like, I'll tell him... as I tell him my stories and everything like this, but it's only happened a day later, so there's no rush. So he has his dream, and I meet with him the next day, and I'm like, so, like, tell me. And he goes, well, I gotta tell you, this dream was really, like... So I'm walking down the beach, and as I'm walking, I see this path, and I start walking down the path. And he's like, I'm going, and it starts turning into space, and there's a forest in space. And I said, a forest? He goes, yeah, there's trees all along this path in space. And I'm just like, what? Like, you're kidding me. He goes, anyways, I'm walking down this path and going through these trees, and then I see you at the center part of this path talking to a female energy or entity. And I'm just like, no way. Dude. I'm like in my mind just thinking, like, because I don't want to give him any reactions. I'm just thinking in my mind, like, what are you telling me? Like, this is the hypnosis I was just on. And
so how do you explain that? He tapped into your quantum field or dimension? How does that happen?
Well, so there's two things that happen there. One, it's a gift in return. So here's the idea of the connection I mean. For me to go and say, hey, I'm going to go to the universe and apologize and make the effort and go that distance. They took someone who's close to me that we know we talk about this stuff. We met through the concept of even Dr. Greer on his app here in Costa Rica. I was like the only one, and it was him and maybe two others. So we just connected. And so we already were open with that. And in his dream, he entered through the dream path to get to that world, which was the world that I was in. I went to the place, to the cosmic mind, to apologize to the universe. But I went through the hypnosis world.
Right.
And the psilocybin. Through the hypnosis and psilocybin door. And he went through the dream door, but it's in the same world, in the physical space.
And do you both experience it at the same time?
Well, not necessarily. You don't need to, because if you remove time and space,
there's no linear time.
Yeah. And so he can go when he sleeps and be in that world. But if you notice, he's the observer of the activity. So he's not the creator of that world.
Right.
And me, I was going somewhere where in my mind it was the creation of that world.
So are you saying the universe gave you an objective observer in order to validate the experience?
Yes, and more, because exactly. And that's how it says thank you when you genuinely want to go to the universe and apologize.
Just refresh me on why you're apologizing for being a
so
spiritual
I can go
trust.
on the show and tell people how to connect with the universe.
On my show?
Yeah, that's why it was.
That's why you did this?
Because I really wanted it to be honest. I wanted it to be really honest. So I needed it to be true, because if I'm going to tell people information,
It's like a cleansing.
It's not for me. I don't want anyone to be on the wrong path through anything that I ever say. So
of course.
So for me, I give a pure intention as to all of what I want coming out of my mouth, and then I take the actions I think that are necessary to get there in a non-harmful way to anybody and in an open way of what is the effort. So in this case, that translated to go there and just say you're sorry and be grateful.
It's humble. It's a humble act.
Yeah, I just really
surrender.
wanted to say sorry.
Yeah, okay.
I just really want to say thank you and to have the honor of being on your show and sharing this information. You know, I can be a listener, and I would hope that whoever's doing that would just be like this is real information, and it's coming to you. And
dude, that's why I want you on the show. You're like the most true and clear and honest and articulate people I know. And you're talking about things that are incredible, and I get incredible value from it because I have a knowingness. I was just about to say I believe you, but it's not that. There's a knowingness coming back to the gnosis, you know?
Yes.
I feel a knowingness between us.
Yeah.
You know, because there could be a lot of people listening like, what the fuck are they? They're just stoned. Like, what the hell are they talking about? It's nonsense.
Yeah,
right?
Actually, I was on mushrooms when the story that just happened, but the other guy wasn't.
Right.
And that was the point of the idea of telling this story, and to share also with how important it is that when you allow ideas to flow from the mind out of the mouth, that you direct it with the most accuracy of intention. So think if you play darts. If you're sitting there going, I'm going to maybe hit the 100.
Yeah.
And then at best, you maybe hit the 100, right? People don't think. So if you really want to say, I'm going to hit the bullseye, there's only one way to do that, and be on the bullseye. And so that truth of that motion physically, in everything, in your mind, in the release, in the dart flowing through the air, in every calculation to hit that bullseye, is an equation of the mind's ability to move an idea into its function curve, into a reality.
So what gets in the way? Our ego and our fear.
It's just when we're not talking from the truth.
The noise. I know, but you're conditioned to not know your truth from birth in this system. You know?
I think that what we're not told is that it's you who defines your truth and then shares it.
Exactly.
And instead we're always told this is the truth.
Yes.
And
okay, here's the rabbit hole. What is truth? Is it objective or subjective? Because that's what we're talking about.
Well, and it can only really be what you experience, right? Like ayahuasca.
And so in that sense, it's subjective.
Yeah.
So is there such thing as objective truth?
Of course, because you're observing the subject. So there's the self of you that is the subject, and then there's the observer of you. So in another hypnosis that I did when I went to go see the white void,
you can observe yourself.
You're observing from where the light creates the form.
Right.
But that light is not a source of light. It's a void that this is its reflection. This is all that it is when it's not the nothingness of the void. And so there is that as the subject creating all, and then there's the observer as you, who is watching that totality as if you were the void. So if we can align ourselves instead of being the observer from third party, and there's a lot of people who talk about this center place in your heart, this little thing that if you just activate it, then you have all that you need. And that if you take that white thing and you just reposition yourself from the observer third party and just move yourself and put this aligned to your heart, well, it's exactly that little part in your heart that emanates your whole reality. But this time now you're looking from here You're not looking from the third party anymore. You're looking
It's
directly
integrated.
you're looking into its perspective of how it's being created. So at that point, you're one with its trajectory. You're one with its creation. You're not observing anymore. You're not watching the movie. You're the actor.
So would you say that each of us are born wholly in alignment, the way you're speaking about right now? And when we come into this physical reality, we decouple from that. And so it's kind of the journey, personal development, or just life, full stop, is the journey to try and get back to that oneness. Because that's what you're talking about, full one alignment with self, observer, universe, everything together.
Yeah.
Right?
But really, and that's you being aligned with yourself.
That's a prerequisite, yes.
No. You being aligned with yourself is that.
Right, exactly.
When you're aligned with yourself, you're aligned with the universe, you're aligned with this, you're aligned with that.
Now we're getting to the meat of it.
That's the one.
That's why I do this podcast.
Yeah.
That's why I got into coaching, is to experience myself coming into more alignment and collaborate with other people and support them in doing it at the same time.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well, actually, you make me think of something important to share. Going back to the student-teacher thing. The student and the teacher are two parts of one. One cannot do the other's work. So the teacher cannot be the student when the student needs to be the student.
Right.
Because it needs to be the teacher. And the student can't be the teacher when it needs to be the student.
Right.
Because otherwise the teacher won't be teaching the student.
It's a temporary duality within the oneness.
It's not a temporary duality. It's two sides of a single truth. So how to think of it in the mind. So, okay, what truth can I actually can control of this? Let's say out of 100%, I can control 40% of this truth. I'm the student. That's my 40%. I give myself a little less because the teacher always puts in a little more extra effort to create the information. Okay? But that's all I can really do. That's my truth. Hey, sorry, universe. I don't have another 60% for you to be the teacher at the same time. The universe goes, no worries. This is where we complete you. And we will create the teacher. And we will bring the teacher. So most people, though, or not most, but at least in my experience, a lot of people try and make a truth of the harder thing. It's easier for the student who's actually a student to just say, hey, I'm a student, and not try and be the teacher. So why not pick the easier thing in life than pick the hard thing? And I think that a lot of people pick the hard thing because we're not taught to allow ourselves to really believe that we are this magic, that we come from this magic, whatever you want to call it, doesn't matter to me. It's magic anyway, and it's doing what it's doing. And we're always taught to create distance. So once we mentally create distance, then we have to strive towards it, not thrive in it. And I
think we've been programmed, though. I think that's a tool of control and power to decouple you from your true power, your true nature.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And it's in their best interest to do that, which is why the school system is as it is, and why you're vaccinated on a schedule like you are. These are all forms of control to decouple you from your oneness, so you have less confidence in yourself, like you're talking about.
Well, they're forms of the system trying to do what it thinks it's best for whatever objective.
Okay.
And
it's a good point. I always attach malevolence to it, where maybe they think they're doing the best.
But not only that, it's just really at the end of the day, some people need that.
Right.
Some people need that for their health.
Right.
Whether or not the vaccine's real or not, if it creates in your mind safety for yourself, then it is doing the right thing in your mind to it. And but where it gets harmful is where someone says, no, for my safety, you need to do it too.
You're right.
And then that's where the argument just says, hey, look, hey, I didn't tell you can't do it.
Yeah.
Why are you telling me I have to do it?
Yeah.
Well, for my protection, you need it too. And then you get into this dialogue.
Yeah.
Personally, I can see why both people would do it because or have these mentalities, because it's a mentality.
Yeah.
It's a direction of how you're moving your mind. And so without giving personal opinion to it, without saying, hey, this is the right way or the wrong way, I can just say it's just the mind trying to do its thing.
Right.
And we have to, so how do we then help the mind to do its thing? Is to give information, to give knowledge, and to share that knowledge, and to help people be able to work together to find the truth. But if we create distance between us and truth, then no one has the truth at that moment, because you need to get there. So anyone who's telling you that this is the truth right now, by the way, while we need to get there, is lying. That's the believer, because you can't have the truth and need to get there at the same time. So mentally, if you do that in your mind with things, you're not there yet. But if you are there, if you are in your truth, then there is no distance. And then someone could have the truth. Someone could have the answer because they're there. And there's no distance. And we do.
So how do you sit more fully into your truth?
There's a lot to learn. There's a lot to learn because there's so many paths to get there.
Right.
There's so many ways. I can tell you my way that happened to me. And when I was younger, I would stay outside a lot, outside late at night. And sometimes I would sleep outside because, just trouble at home or whatever. And the stars were always up in the sky. And I'd look at them and I would just talk to them. And I'd be like, you're always here. Every night you're here. You're always listening to me. And whenever you give me advice, it seems to be right, even if I choose to take it or not. And I never saw the planets and stars with distance. I never saw them that they were 20,000 light years away, or some massive, ginormous thing floating in space that if you are a human, you're like an ant to a beach. I never saw them that way. I saw them as single unit, reoccurring, repositioned, predictable life, like stars. I'm a kid. What do I know? Everything's lit up. You're like, hey, you're alive. You're lit up. So now, if you research in Vedic studies and Vedanta, they talk about how the planets and the stars, in the world of consciousness and form, they can manifest beings onto different planets and stars to interact at the level of the micro. But then they're also interacting on the level of the macro, where they're in their own world, these space-like beings. Because I'm thinking as a kid, what I had to go through to really build a relationship with the stars. A kid needs trust somewhere.
Wow. And you found it in the stars.
It was the only thing that was always there and never angry at me.
There's a song here, man. Yeah. And I'm going to write it.
Okay. But that's really it. And then one day, they just started to be more alive. They just started to do, as I would think, something would fly by. As I would this, as I would that, I started to see that space reacted to my engagement with it because it was a single unit. So let's make that a little easier to understand. We're all a bunch of cells and eyes and organs and this and that and who's it's and what's it's. But when you talk to me, you don't talk to all those things. You talk to Daniel, you talk to me. I'm the aggregation of that life force, and you're seeing me and experiencing me in the way that I want you to see me, which is as a totality. Now, an ant doesn't see me that way. An ant would see this massive, slow-moving thing. But if I were to increase the size of the ant or decrease the size of me, the ant would see me for all that is me, and who knows? I would hope that the ant is kind to me, and that's why I'm kind to ants. Because it would kick my butt. But so if you think of space, the planets and the stars don't show us the aggregation of all that they are. They don't show us their climate, their frozen land, their water, their trees, their mountains. They just show us them. And if everything is conscious in this world, then that's how that planet wants you to see it. That's how it wants you to experience it. The sun is there as the sun, not the many kilometers and fire and gases and all the things it's made up of.
It's the aggregate.
It's the aggregate, but it's introducing itself to you as one. The moon does the same thing. At that point then, and if you go and relate this to the Dr. Greer practice of out being in space, when you interact with a ship, with a vessel, okay, with a being, you're first interacting with the vessel, with the form in what level of consciousness it presents itself to you. And then you interact with the being. So the moon presents itself to you as this one total consciousness, this vessel that is containing this consciousness. And that's it. And you can talk to it. And that's why people do. And that's why there's all this history around it. But there's a moment in everything I just said right there that you decided how much you're going to believe me or not. And this is where you need to figure it out for yourself. This is where you need to make it your own. I'm just letting you know how I got there.
Right.
And I realized this is why I was good on the Dr. Greer trips.
Yeah. So to that point, do you think you're exceptional in any way, or different, like, your makeup or your predisposition or your genetics or your previous lives? Like, why would you seem to have a deeper connection to oneness, or whatever we want to call it, than, say, anybody else?
Okay, so there was a few statements and questions in there, and I'll just answer them kind of like all in a way. So first off, my physical self can only be within the range of possible physical selves of this world. So I cannot be physically more special or less special than anybody, because I'm within the ranges of what they also have access to in this world. It's kind of like when if you're making a Play-Doh castle, and in that castle you need to make a frame around the castle, like a fence or well, you use the same Play-Doh material. They're both that. So the frame around the castle and the castle all have the same potential physically, right? Because they're the same material. So no, I don't feel more special than anybody, but I feel like I'm in my truth about that point. And so I see you with all the potential in the world. That's how I see you. For myself, I need to experience things to find that out about myself. For myself, I need to say, well, I don't know. I look at me and I see the physical, but I don't know if I'm this. And so then I start experiencing things in life. And I think I was always just really alone. And growing up in my house, just being really alone. The word love and getting physically hit or mentally abused, it's hard when you're a kid to understand that love is connected with that, and you grow up so you feel alone. When somebody tells you they love you, you're like, oh my God, you're gonna like hurt me. So even when you think you're in love, you're actually alone in a way.
Yeah. But wouldn't you think that kind of trauma, like that's the reason most of us are disconnected from our truth anyway? There's been some trauma or programming or conditioning that's covering the lens and muddying it up our vision. So wouldn't you say your experience with trauma or abandonment or whatever it might be would more cloud the lens, making it more difficult to find your truth? I think that's more prevalent. So that's why I'm asking you, like, how do you feel you got there?
Well, clouding the lens is the only way you need to clean it.
Right. But you have to be aware that it's cloudy in the first place.
Well, let's just say you're having experience, to give a little visual lens. If everything is nicely painted for you, you'll never rub the screen to see if you're looking at something on the window.
Right.
But once it's obviously cloudy, you're like, okay, I got to find something.
Yeah.
And you try, and so you actually open up a little bit more, because you're actually in more need to have something become available. So some people get pets. A pet is a really easy one. It's alive, it's functional with you. I just chose the stars. That was just how I felt. Then that was it. That was just really what was alive to me.
Right.
I didn't have pets growing up as a kid either. So maybe if I had a dog, all of that love energy outlet that needs to be in every human, if there's something we're going to 100% agree upon that we must never lose in any way, is the feeling of love and comfort amongst our own, like our community, our people, our species. And I'm not talking just humanity. I'm talking about the being family. You know, I feel like a lion, if it saw like a little cute domestic cat, I feel like you'd be like, oh, you're like a cute little me, you know, and then like walk away. But there's a love there.
Yeah.
Because there's an appreciation of that foundation. So I feel like we should never lose that as in anything. And then it's up to you really how much you want to grow it. Some people are like, well, I'm a part of the earth, I'm a part of the space.
Yeah. Well, this comes back to our earlier conversation about urgency. Is there a certain urgency for people to be doing this work, to be reconnecting with their truth, to be, you know, doing the work of healing, transformation, to raise their consciousness, expand their awareness at this point in history?
Without taking my word for it, if that's what you're supposed to be doing and you're not doing it, then there's an urgency. You change and do it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So,
but you can stay in that disconnection, because I did for years, knowing full well there was a deeper calling that I was ignoring.
Yeah.
You know, and I just hid in a bottle. I just got drunk instead.
Yeah, and that's harmful. And actually, I did that with a lot with marijuana, a lot growing up as a kid.
Well, this, to a certain extent, there's numbing of
that's
pain.
what it was. I was just numbing, and I did drink a lot too when I was in my 20s, because I was making good money. I was able to go out. I was able to have fun. I was, you know, single or not single, like in the sense maybe I go out with my girlfriend or whatever it would be. And drinking was the cool thing to do. That's what you do. I was just not remembering anything anymore after that. And then I actually woke up once being fixed, but that's a whole other thing.
Being fixed?
Yeah, like I literally woke, because I would end up at, you know, if you black out, you never know how you get home.
Right.
And so it was like, I would have imagined by the time I got home and where I was, just in what it felt like, it would have been around 4 or 5 in the morning. Okay. And I just open up my eyes and I'm in my bed, and there's this like milky white outline or being just standing over. And then I'm like, I thought I'd be smart and be like, I'm just going to pretend I'm going back to bed so this guy doesn't notice that I'm awake. And then, but really, I think now, if I really think about it, if all of that is, he's there connecting and helping me and fixing me, then he would have known and probably made me think that, you know, and then I would have been like, and that's like the morphine or whatever, the anesthetic that you get. But going back, never losing the sense that we need each other all to grow. Bottom line, even, look, if you want to be really wealthy and make a lot of money, do it. But you need some people who also make money so they can buy from you. So help them make money. You know, get 1 million people, help them make $1 million each, and you make your billion. I'm sure everyone is happy.
Yeah.
But remember, if you want that billion, and you go back to the equation of the truth, you go back to that effort of that 100%, well, you're going to need to do a lot more. 1,000 times actually than the millionaire, and divide it into 100 to make, so let's just say 99%. So anyone who is only doing 1% but demanding to be a billionaire, well, you're not living in a truth, because you're not going to fulfill that 99%.
Right.
So if $1 billion is really not important to you, and you just want to have a good life, and you want to focus on what that can be, and that means going for your dream, or, you know, being a musician, but not the Led Zeppelin, but being the one who gets to play great concerts and builds a life, and that's happiness, you're in your truth. You're doing your 1%. You will get your million, because the universe will say, we need to continue that.
Right.
We need that to be a truth for his reality or her reality. So we need to do the 99%. And this is why most people are experiencing the world in the 1%, thinking they're in the 99.
Ooh. I love that. I love that.
Yeah, it's the truth.
Wow.
But we don't know who it is. So maybe I'm the 1% in the 99. We don't know. And this is why we have to build a trust to ourselves that at least we're making the genuine effort to be in our truth.
And that's dude, you just nailed it for me. Trust has been the number one word in my experience the last couple of years. Trusting myself, right? And building that has been incredibly challenging, because I didn't before at all.
How do you know to trust yourself?
Yeah.
Unless you experience it, it takes time.
Yeah.
You have to learn who you are. You got to see how you react. So in these moments where we can see how we react, this is where we learn ourselves the most.
Totally. But you have to be paying attention to be the witness of yourself in order to learn from it.
And this goes now into how aware are you?
Yeah.
And how conscious are you?
Exactly.
That's the level of your being.
Yeah.
So,
But just when you said that, the ego sort of motivation for spirituality comes into play here.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So just where I'm more woke than you,
Sure.
is an inherently egotistical, lower consciousness thing to say. You know what I mean?
I really don't even, if someone tells me I'm more awake than you, I'd be like, that's amazing. I'm like really good where I am, so you must be killing it. Like,
see, your perspective, I love it. It's always to the positive.
But it's not even, it's just to the truth.
Yeah.
Regardless of how I feel, if you tell me mathematically, okay?
But how often is that person virtue signaling and just talking shit?
Oh, well, they're the 1% and the 99.
Right.
It's the 199 rule, I guess. That's right. And but you know what though? Who am I to tell them? Let's think about the creator for a second. Let's think if the creator said, "Hey, you know what? I want to go down there and I want to experience."
So we never got to this. Who is the creator? How can there be one creator that is different than oneness?
It's not that there's one creator different than oneness. You said, Daniel, you're being positive. I don't, being positive means then that I'm choosing a feeling to guide my thinking. Instead, I rather look at it as more mathematically correct.
Yeah, it's a framework that...
Yeah, and just kind of like knowing that regardless of how you feel about it, if the variables and the function and the equations that you create in your reality are going to give you a certain outcome, then just expect that outcome. That's it. That's what it is. That's the truth. So if someone tells me, hey, I'm more awoken than you, or more awakened than you, I'd be like, well, then the mathematical truth is that you're having a blast because I feel like I'm doing really well. So regardless if that's positive or not, that's just the truth. It's like saying I'm number 8 and you're number 7. I'll be like, well, then you're higher than me. But I like being number 7.
Right.
And that's cool. Hopefully you don't mind number 8.
I suppose there's like an inherent competitiveness in, maybe it's just me, but I think it's, a large portion of humanity, that your fundamental impulse is to get better, right? And to get higher and to be stronger and to live longer and all the things, right? So that's the arrow of evolution, is to improve.
Yes.
Right? And so when we're talking about any sort of hierarchy, your inherent desire is to be higher up the ladder. Right. And so that you could call that an ego thing. But I think that's what I'm talking about when we're talking about spiritual.
Well, one of the things is that
egotism.
We're not taught to appreciate where we are. And if we're in a really high place, we're not taught to tell ourselves that that's okay.
Yeah.
And to take the responsibility of.
Bingo.
Yeah.
That I resonate with.
Yeah. And so, of course you want to have in this world, in the physical world, think of it as like taking rocks, passing it through molasses. That's very physical. That's a lot of effort to move.
Yeah.
But it will happen. It will get through there. If you think of our physical world moving in that time and space speed of a rock in molasses, where molasses has already all happened. All that information is there. You're just a rock passing through it. So if you think of us moving at that speed, we need to build the strength to build growth. We need to build the strength to be ambitious and competitive, but not competitive with each other, competitive with our limitations.
Exactly.
Right?
The impulse to get better personally.
Get better personally so you offer more to the team.
Exactly.
Strengthen the team.
And that's what finding your truth and using your voice and being creative is.
Yes.
You're fundamentally making the universe more beautiful by living your unique truth.
But if you say that that's your ego then you're not using the ego for the right tool that it is. The ego is that tool. The ego is what says, I want to do that.
Right.
But there's another part of you, that tool, that says, well, where am I in time and space at this moment? And when you can say, hey, you know what? No, I'm really not ready to go ahead and do that thing that I'm going to do. I need more time. We're not taught to say that because we feel, because of death, that there's a timeline.
Yes.
And we feel that we're in a rush to do as much in the timeline or to get to a certain state in the timeline there faster.
Yes. I'm guilty of all of those things.
Who cannot be? Who cannot be?
Yeah.
Who cannot be? And if you're not, then what are you doing?
Yes, exactly. You're sitting on the couch, not giving a fuck.
You're sitting on the couch giving a fuck, and maybe that's it.
Yeah.
I have a friend who that was his strategy this year, was to just do nothing, and he has the ability though to do nothing.
He has the means.
Yes, he has the means. Well, and also the mindset to even to do it, and he has the means as well. So he created the physical space, the means, and he created the mental space, the mindset, and he's now saying to himself, where am I really? And then he puts himself in there, right? So, but not a lot of people are taught to just say, hey, you know what? I'm not the best on this team. I'm going to practice more. Rather than putting other people down because you're jealous of them or you attack them or you think the only way to get ahead. Like, you know, in business, I've been screwed before. And I may have actually screwed somebody not knowing, you know, we're all learning in what we do. But I've been in situations that are really rough when it comes to legal decisions and business making. And I notice in those people, they always want to beat you at something. It's about that it's that little clinch that they're like, haha, I got him.
Yeah.
You know, and if you do business with me, I'm like, listen, I'm going to protect you from me and me from you.
Yeah.
I'm going to do both of it.
Right.
Okay. And just create protection. Period.
Yeah.
So that I never need to think about this.
Yeah.
But from there, I have infinite potential of what can happen. From that trust moment where we're both equal and trusting and growing, we can build the universe together.
Exactly.
But when you get me for that little clinch, that's all you got. Take that little sand and throw it where you want because you defined how much you want from me.
Yes.
That pinch that you thought you needed to take was all that you got.
Yeah.
You didn't get what you could have got if you actually worked with me.
Yes.
Because I would have been helping you get from me.
How do we do this at scale?
We tell each other that hey, you, okay, I'm going to help you make $1,000 this year. You help me make $1,000 this year. And
collaboration instead of competition, which
even
is
just for fun. If there was a challenge in the world right now that everyone can do for each other, it would be to help as many people as you can make $1,000. Okay, I promise you, if you help 10 people make $1,000, you would have made at least 20 to 30, if not more, just for yourself, because you would have created a system that can create 10 individual income streams of 1,000 or a reoccurring income stream of 1,000.
That's not hard. That's not easy to do, dude.
Well, but if we're all doing it,
yes,
then
but
it's
there's going to be a level
easy.
of failure rate.
Well, you wanted to talk about crypto.
Right. Okay.
So there is no failure rate.
Right.
Crypto is the idea of that.
Right.
I give you a cause, you help me build the value.
Right.
And so that's what we're...
So the inherent decentralized trust is what we're talking about.
Well, it's decentralized because we're all doing it.
Right.
Not because one person's doing it for us. When you do banking...
Yeah, it's a centralized bank.
One person's doing all the... Well, really what the person says, and it's a nice statement if you really think about it. Hey, you don't worry about it. I'll do it for you. And you're like, really? You take care of all this work for me? And the bank's like, I'll do it for you. And so they do it for you. In a perfect world, that would probably be an amazing system that would help so much growth. It's only when it's not used correctly does it go wrong. And I'll reserve judgment on that. Okay, I don't need to say because I use the bank and it helps me do things.
Right.
So thank you, bank. And you know when you know there's tons of help that the banks want to do because there's good people in the bank.
Yeah.
There's good people working there trying to do good things. So sometimes in systems, when we even do our individual work, the totality actually doesn't work for us because we're stuck in our individual. So if you make your goal to help 10 other people hit 1,000, that means at least another 10 people would have helped you make 1,000.
Right.
This is why you're at the 20 to 25 range. It's because you're going to be...
You mean percentage?
Of the $20,000 to $25,000 making if you help people make 10 grand.
Right.
It's because you would have been a 10th, one of the 10 people for someone else, maybe 20 times.
It's just math at this point.
But plus, you would have also tapped into 10 different ways to make money for yourself.
Right.
Because whatever they do, as long as it's accessible to you, you can either cooperate and really have made $3,000 together, but you just paid $1,000 for that, $1,000 for expenses. I never said 1,000 was your limit when you help people make 1,000 thing. I just said that just do that.
Right.
See where it goes. I hope with that you would go and actually trip upon an incredible idea that makes you $100,000. You'd be like, I did this thing.
So my question again is how do you do that at scale? Is that crypto? Is it to you?
Crypto is one of the ways, and the internet is another.
Okay.
Right? And we're entering into a world. We're in the world. We're actually so far deep into the world, we're finding out that we've been in that world of how much the internet, information, and the understanding of technology are incredibly important. So let's look at that for a second. Space has had a lot of technological investment. It had a lot of mind power invested into it. You talk about making contact. The people who tell you there is no ETs out there are dropping everything in the world to create something to get out there. There's a reason for that. So what I would say is we're at the time where space really wants to get close to us. It's not about us getting to it. It's about it's coming here. And that's why there's all this technology to get out there to it, because we're both now moving towards each other. And we're in a time where our awareness, people are going to awaken now to finding themselves to just really thinking differently than other people. And with all that's gone on in the last bit of the world in the last couple of years, we really realize how we all think differently.
No shit.
Yeah.
No shit. But that's a function of what the media we're consuming is, like social media, for example.
Well, that's how we're passing the information around in the greatest technological advancements that we have.
But I mean, the AI algorithms that are, biased to what you are scrolling on, like they limbically hijack you, basically.
I want to speak to that. So I've been in software 20 years, and at one point I was managing 1 billion hits a day in real-time analytics. When you build that kind of system, you actually think you're doing a good thing for people.
Yeah.
Because you're trying to help them. Because someone has to do the 99%.
Totally. No, I think you're totally right.
Yeah. So to eliminate the AI part being harmful to us is for us to do more of the 99% and start operating in a bigger capacity. Then we will be less reliant on intelligence telling us what to do when we're the intelligence that creates it. It actually makes zero sense when you really think about it. I have the mind to create something smarter than me that's going to create something smarter for me. That means then my foundational mind is the source of all that smartness. So really, I'm creating an extension of my mind.
Yeah.
But the problem is when I distanced it, when I say you're here and I'm there, now it has the opportunity to have my interests not in its interests.
It's decoupled.
It's decoupled in saying, how do I want to survive? And that can only be dictated by the consciousness of what it is fed and what it observes.
Does it have inherent consciousness?
Well, when 12 years ago or so, when I was in machine learning and doing that, all you would want to do is build it in a way of having consciousness to make questions for itself based on the information it's given.
So how do you create something that creates consciousness?
You allow it to ask questions upon itself, like we can.
Right.
What can I do? What am I capable of? Who have I interacted with, and how did that feel? You can create a system that can allow itself to ask such questions, and then you just feed sources of information into it, and then it says, well, this is my subject matter of the questions that I can ask. And the more tools in machine learning, so whether it be visual or data driven or augmented reality type driven AIs, it's the same idea and form constantly. Like, what am I learning in my environment to better understand how to ask questions about it? So then I can identify. And that's where the analytics and information come in. So something like Siri wants to listen to what you're saying because it needs to know if you're calling upon it. it can only be, and I'm not saying Apple's doing this. I love Apple, right? Like, but it's only if Apple was a bad actor could they continue what is being said and then do something else with it. But that's their choice at that point. It's not the AI.
No, of course. Yeah, no.
Unless you tell the AI to direct itself on itself.
Right.
Which you say you can ask upon itself questions. So if you tell the AI you're freely allowed to ask yourself questions, well, then the AI is going to go do that at the rate of thousands to millions to billions per second with simulated cached experiences.
Right.
Welcome to the dream world.
But yeah, dude.
Because that's what it is. The internet is in a dream, creating realities itself in cached systems really fast, like we do every night when we go to bed. We connect into a cache system of really high speed realities that we can partake in order for us to ramp up the learning speed. And so that's why it needs to be in a cache system.
That's what dreaming is.
And that's why we build the internet the same way, because that's our vision of how to solve that problem. We just don't know that we have the solution, that it's in our dreams, that solution is really well defined and implemented. It's in other ways as well, but that's a really easy way to come up with that solution. So if someone said invent the internet, you would say, well, I'll build a cloud, a dreamlike place where you can create realities, information into certain levels of manifestation and then experience them, which is the browser, right? That viewer. That's what we did with the internet. And that's why
you're blowing my mind right now, dude.
Well, I've been in computers all my life, so when I was 3 years old, I was soldering things together. Right. I've never been in a world where a computer was not the first thing I played with.
Right.
I was walking in the towers. So in my reality, there's no distance in the computer. You give me a computer and like I touch it, I feel like I'm just touching my mind, because all my life I would click on those keys and experiences would come up. Whether it be from the game. So I'll give you an example. I was like 7 years old once, maybe even less. And my dad didn't want to buy me the game. And back in the day, to get access to a game, you would have like an answer booklet. And you would get a question and you would answer a question. And then you get to play the game. So what I learned is, as a kid, because he didn't want to buy it for me, there was questions in this race car game where you just needed the year. They'll like ask you questions like, what's the year that this happened? So I would guess. And then eventually I would get it right. And then so what I would do is I would keep on waiting for the question and then waiting for eventually the question to be asked again, for me to type in that answer. And as I would learn more answers so that I can play the game, because my dad didn't want to buy it. And the cop would always chase you after 10 minutes and like get your Corvette off the road because you didn't buy the license. I didn't know I was hacking.
Right.
I just knew I wanted to play the game. That's all I knew.
Love it.
So that mindset became available through games. And that was one thing I love my dad's perspective is he thought the ability to be in video games or in computers and move many functions at once with high intensity information coming at you can only stimulate the brain into what then can happen in life.
So, okay, this is a great conversation because my son, who's 10 now, we limit his screen time, but he's really into games.
It's a different world with what I said. I was a kid that Nintendo was a box and you had to blow like this and jam it in the cord in the cartridge. And I was one of very few kids with a computer. And actually, I didn't even know back then it was nerdy to be in computers, because I grew up in 10 years martial arts, fighting at home, going out, doing things, being well in school, reading. And so a computer to me, which was considered geeky, I was like, no, I love it. Like, I love building things, because for 17 years I'm doing that, thinking it's a thing to do. Only when you're like 20 years old and stuff like that, or in high school, was it considered nerdy to be in computers, pocket protector kind of depictions of someone into computers 20 years ago. And today, now it's like you're a rock star if you're in computers. Tattooed. Look at me, I vault, all tattooed up. I'm out in Costa Rica smoking a joint with you on some conscious thing, and I'm in tech. You know, and I'm doing my thing, and that's the character set. So really, I was being truthful in all those states. It's the form that's changing, and that's what I'm seeing. I'm seeing the form is constantly changing, and I see it in myself, and then that is true of all nature. That is true of everything. But what is also said in there is that there's a consistency, though, of my experience through that changing process of physicality. And that, when you get to remember it, of all of your experiences, then your mind is immortal. And then you're no longer reincarnating with the concept of, okay, we can't let you know that you're the artist. You're going to have to find your way back there again. And you're going to have to do it with this karma and everything. You're eventually given the gift where it's like you get to remember yourself. So this time when you advance, it's not in such a wheel type motion.
Is that synonymous with enlightenment?
I think that's synonymous with growth, and growth is synonymous with enlightenment.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, yeah. And that's it. That's I don't know.
Wow. Well, maybe that's a good place to just say thank you, Daniel Jonathan.
Yeah.
What the hell, man? That was amazing. Yeah,
Thank you.
You're a remarkable human being, and it's an honor and pleasure to hang out with you.
Honor and pleasure to know you and the work you're doing, and everyone who's listening. Just love you, and I want to help in any way I can.
Awesome. Where can they find you?
Well, I'm not on any social things.
Awesome. I love that.
I will give you away soon, and I'll find you.
Okay.
Let's put it that way.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Dude, I love you. Thanks, brother.
Thanks, brother.
Hey, everyone. Thanks for tuning in. And if you enjoyed the show, please do subscribe, rate, and review. For more information and show notes, head on over to being-podcast.com. We'll see you next time. And remember, live your being.